buckle up, because Brandon Beane and company are cooking up something in the trenches, and it smells a whole lot like panic, strategy, or maybe both at once. We've got a preseason showdown against the Steelers tomorrow night. We've got roster cuts landing at 6 o'clock sharp on Sunday. We've got mystery injuries piling up in the middle of the offensive line. And smack in the middle of all of it, the Bills just signed a total unknown. A guy who has never taken a single snap in a real NFL game, days before the deadline that decides who stays and who goes. If you're a Bills fan, this is the kind of move that makes you sit up straight and start asking questions. So let's dig into it. Let's start with the name everyone's suddenly talking about, Sincere Haynesworth. Buffalo brought in this interior offensive lineman seemingly out of nowhere, and on the surface it looks like a depth move. But when you start pulling the thread, it gets a lot more interesting. Haynesworth is a Buffalo-born kid, born and raised right here, who ended up playing his high school ball down in Texas before becoming a star center at Tulane. He was a two-time all-conference standout, even earned Offensive Lineman of the Year honors in college. But since going undrafted back in 2024, his NFL journey has been a roller coaster. He bounced through practice squads with the Saints, got a look from the Patriots, was waived with an injury settlement, caught on with the Cardinals on a futures deal, got cut again, and finally landed in the upstart UFL with the St. Louis Battlehawks, where he actually balled out, starting games at guard and eventually taking over at center in the playoffs. Now, out of nowhere, he's a Buffalo Bill. And the timing could not be more suspicious. Here's why this matters. Connor McGovern, Buffalo's starting center, has been out with an injury for about a month now. He's been publicly vocal, saying he expects to be full speed by that September 13th opener against Houston, and trust us, Bills Mafia, you're going to want him ready, because that Texans defensive front is an absolute buzzsaw. In McGovern's absence, Quessenberry has been holding things down with the starters. But the real story is who's not been getting reps. Cedric Van Pran-Granger, the guy who's currently third on the depth chart at center, has barely practiced at all this week. Not a snap. And that is a massive red flag heading into a season where depth at that position is supposed to be a strength. Not a question mark. So why would the Bills go out and sign a completely unproven center just days before cuts while their actual depth piece is sitting on the sideline? There are really only two explanations, and Bills fans are already choosing sides in the comment section. Option 1. This is purely a just-in-case move. With McGovern banged up and Van Pran-Granger not practicing, maybe Buffalo simply wants an extra body who can snap the ball in an emergency. Someone who can eat reps in practice so Quessenberry doesn't get overworked and doesn't risk getting hurt himself right before the opener. That's the boring, sensible front office being careful explanation. But option 2 is the one that's setting Bills Twitter on fire. What if this signing is the clearest signal yet that Cedric Van Pran-Granger is about to be traded? Because here's the thing, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Just yesterday, a report out of Sports Illustrated linked the Los Angeles Chargers as a serious potential trade partner for Van Pran-Granger. And today, we're getting word of another season-ending injury to a center on the Baltimore Ravens roster, which means the league-wide demand for interior offensive linemen just spiked again. When you put it all together, a third-string center who suddenly can't get on the practice field, outside interest from at least one team, a fresh injury crisis around the league driving up demand, and Buffalo turning around and signing a replacement body almost overnight, it starts to look less like a coincidence and a lot more like a front office setting the table for a trade before Sunday's deadline forces their hand. Bills Mafia, we want to know what you think. Is this Brandon Beane simply covering his bases with some smart low-cost depth? Or is this the calm before the storm on a Van Pran-Granger trade? Drop your prediction down in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of behind-the-scenes gamesmanship that makes roster cutdown week so wild every single year. Now let's zoom out to the league level, because the NFL just made a major announcement that's going to affect every single team, Bills included. The league and the Players Association put out a joint statement saying that starting this season, there's going to be a much stronger emphasis on player health and safety enforcement. We're talking about hip drop tackles, the exact type of hit that knocked Buffalo's own Josh Palmer out for most of last season. We're talking about horse collar tackles, launching or shoving players into other players, hits on defenseless receivers, and blindside blocking. And here's the kicker. If a player racks up 3 of these infractions in a single season across any of those categories, it's an automatic 1-game suspension. No more slap-on-the-wrist fines like we used to see back in the Wild West era of guys like Vontaze Burfict or some of those old Steelers-Bengals brawls. The league is drawing a hard line. And it's not just about punishment after the fact. The NFL is adding a real accountability layer here too. Once a player starts creeping toward that suspension threshold, coaches are now required to sit in on meetings directly with the league office and the player in question. Basically, if you're 1 infraction away from getting benched for a game, everybody in the building is going to know it, and there won't be any confusion about what happens if you cross that line again. It's the NFL saying loud and clear, we're done pretending fines alone will change behavior. So here's a question for the comment section. Is the league finally getting serious about player safety in a way that's overdue, or is this the NFL going soft on physical football? Let us know where you stand. Switching gears to some league-wide gossip that Bills fans should absolutely be paying attention to, safety Taylor Rapp was just released by the Denver Broncos. If you remember, there was a running joke around here just a week or 2 ago about Rapp and his reputation for delivering, let's say, questionable hits, with fans half joking he better not go anywhere near Denver's own star corner Pat Surtain in practice. Well, now he's out of a job in Denver, and it'll be worth watching where he lands next. On a much happier note for Bills fans, let's talk about the chemistry that keeps growing between wide receiver DJ Moore and quarterback Josh Allen. The two have been talking more and more publicly about their relationship, and it's clear this connection goes way beyond the football field. That kind of off-field trust is exactly what tends to translate into big numbers on Sundays. And people around the league are already throwing out wild projections, some as high as 1,500 receiving yards, which would be the most any wide receiver has ever put up playing alongside Josh Allen. That is not a small claim. So Bills Mafia, sound off. How many yards do you think DJ Moore puts up with Josh Allen slinging him the rock this season? Now let's talk about who's actually turning heads in camp ahead of tomorrow night's game against the Steelers. First up, defensive lineman Mike Dana, who Buffalo brought over from Kansas City after he got real experience lining up next to a superstar like Chris Jones. Dana has been quietly excellent this preseason. He's been getting more playing time than a lot of people expected for a guy who profiles as a 5th or 6th option in that outside linebacker room, and honestly, he's earned every rep. There's a real chance he gets cut on paper and then scooped right back onto the practice squad, or even gets a call from another team entirely. If he shows out again against Pittsburgh, don't be shocked if he sneaks onto that 53-man roster after all. Then there's rookie defensive tackle Zane Durant, who's been putting together one impressive rep after another. Fans got a look at a clip recently where Durant got chipped by a tight end, then found himself matched up one-on-one against a starting offensive tackle and still fought his way through to make the tackle on the running back. That's the kind of grit that gets a rookie noticed, and Durant is riding real momentum heading into this final preseason tune-up. Linebacker Jalen Kilgore is another name to watch. He's been banged up for a chunk of camp, but he finally got back onto the practice field this week, which means he should see real snaps against the Steelers. And that's going to be huge for the coaching staff trying to evaluate exactly what his role looks like heading into the regular season. Now here's where things get a little dicey in the secondary. There's growing chatter around safeties Geno Stone and Damar Hamlin, and honestly, it might be the smart move for Buffalo to waive one of those two and hope to sneak him back onto the practice squad, while keeping keeping Kilgore and the rest of the safety room intact on the active roster. Because let's be real, no team is walking into the regular season carrying 6 safeties. Something has to give. And it's not just the safety room that's crowded. The interior linebacker situation is going to be must-watch television on cutdown day 2. You've got Jimmy Charlotte, Keontae Jenkins, Dorian Williams, and Jordan Addison all competing for a limited number of spots. Speaking of Addison, there's real question about whether he ends up on the short-term injured designation, which is something Bills fans will need to track closely as we get closer to Sunday. Meanwhile, Keontae Jenkins has quietly put together a strong offseason that might be forcing the coaching staff's hand. And then there's receiver Dante Pettis, who's going to need something special, a big special teams play, a signature highlight to convince this staff he deserves one of the final roster spots. But save the best for last, Bills Mafia, because tomorrow night belongs to one man, Skylar Bell. This is a receiver who, frankly, a lot of draft analysts thought should have gone earlier than he did, if not for some injury concerns following him out of college. Bell brings serious juice, quick, shifty, the kind of yards-after-catch dynamism that can absolutely take over a preseason game. After stops at both UConn and Wisconsin, Bell is finally getting his real chance to show Buffalo what he can do on a big stage, and this is the night to do it. So there you have it, Bills Mafia. A mystery center signing that might be masking a bigger trade brewing behind the scenes, a league-wide crackdown on dangerous hits, a beloved safety getting cut loose in Denver, a receiver-quarterback bromance that could produce a record-breaking season, and a Steelers preseason matchup absolutely loaded with roster spot drama. This offseason has given us more storylines than some entire regular seasons. Before you go, drop a comment and give this Bills organization a grade A to F and tell us exactly why. Do you think Cedric Van Pran-Granger is still a Buffalo Bill by next week? How many yards is DJ Moore putting up with Josh Allen this year? And is the NFL's new safety crackdown a step in the right direction? Or is the league losing its edge? Let us know down below. If you found any value in this breakdown, do us a favor, smash that like button, drop a comment with your predictions. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that button so you never miss a single Buffalo Bills update. We bring you fresh Bills content every single day, and we've got a lot more coming your way as cutdown weekend approaches. Thanks for watching Bills Mafia. Go Bills, and we'll see you in the next one.